Have you guys ever watched a pro play and they make their utility seem godly? I know I have, and players are always finding cool new ways to use their agent abilities. But sometimes people use their abilities wrong, and they don't even know they're doing it. What's going on, ProGuides family? It is your host Sergeant Frost, and today we'll be covering 10 abilities that you've been using wrong. My goal here is to help you find the most out of your utility, and maybe help your teammates as well. So if you're ready to level up your utility game, do me a favor and one tap the like and subscribe, and let's get started. The first ability that we simply have to talk about is Viper's Snakebite or her Molly. Viper is a solid controller with a lot of strong utility, with one of the most important ones being her Molly. I can personally remember many painful rounds where as we retake a round to try to defuse the spike, both me and my teammates realize that there is nothing we can do anymore when a green vial of poison lands onto the spike. And all we can do is watch the spike sitting there ticking away as we inevitably lose the round. And as someone who often plays Viper myself, I also know how amazing it feels to be that Viper on the other side. But please, and take this to heart, your Snakebites don't have to be served for this purpose only, especially if they can be used to help your teammates. Playing Viper efficiently like the best of the best takes a lot more than just a bunch of cool lineups. You need to be able to adapt to what the situation requires. And if an opportunity arises for you to use your lineups, then of course having lineups ready to go is a bonus. But if you're trying to hit a site and your teammates desperately need some help creating space, your mollies aren't off limits if it means securing the site or stalling a retake. Rather than just rely on your teammates to take a site and stall long enough for your lineups to become effective, take part in doing what's necessary to give your teammates a good shot at securing the site or preventing a fast retake. Also, keep in mind that this isn't just a Viper only issue. Sova players, Brimstone players, and Astra players all fall for this mistake as well. Just because you have utility to stall a bomb defuse doesn't mean that it's fine to suddenly give up all control. If your team is better off fighting off the retake rather than playing the post-plant game, you're technically hurting your team by removing yourself from the equation simply to play lineups or post-plants. Help your team first and foremost before thinking about molly lineups. The next ability that gets misused too often isn't quite misused per se, but used for only one purpose too often. We all know how insane RAZE mains like Flights can use blast packs to fly into sites, but that's not the end all be all of blast packs. RAZE's satchel can be used very effectively for a lot of other purposes, some of which can definitely be more useful depending on the situation. For one, sticking a blast pack on the wall in front of a corner you're about to peek is a great way to disrupt your opponent's crosshair placement and maximize your peeker's advantage. On their screen, you'll quickly fly out of the corner, and unless you're playing against 10s, then that will most likely cause them to whiff their first shots. Alternatively, you can also use your blast packs defensively by disrupting a peek. If you're getting pushed and you just took a duel, maybe you can throw a blast pack at the enemy and prevent a re-peek or disrupt their movement. Ever since the RAZE nerfs back in beta, your blast packs don't necessarily do a lot of damage, but they do still knock back your opponents considerably. Popping your blast pack as your opponent peeks you will disrupt their peek, accuracy, and crosshair placement in a way that's hard for them to predict and react to, meaning that you can use that pressure to either get away and go for round 2, and of course, blast packs also have the nifty use of breaking walls and doors, which can be super useful at times as well. Even though it's cool to fly around with the blast pack, there are a lot of practical uses that you can use to implement into your gameplay as well. Do you know how and when to use your utility most efficiently? Come visit our website ProGuides.com, where our Radiant and Immortal level coaches can definitely help with that. Not only are they at the top of the rank ladder, they're also professionally trained to help you improve at maximum speed. So if learning from the best sounds fun to you, or just simply ranking up sounds good, click the link in the description and start your journey to the top today. Next up is our favorite ranked demon, REYNA. She's a very simple agent to pilot, and a lot of her kit is enabled by solid gunplay and fundamentals. But one thing that a lot of people mess up when trying to get the most out of her is using her flashes properly. A lot of people at the higher ranks already do this. But when using REYNA's flashes, you should always make sure to toss them higher or lower instead of just in front of you. The reason you want to do this is not only because it might cover more ground and flash more areas, but also because it disrupts the enemy's crosshair placement, which means it's harder for them to adjust to you afterwards. If you throw them low, for example, it means that annoying guy holding the angle would first need to adjust their crosshair down, then back up in order to shoot the flash and continue holding the angle at head level. Whereas if you throw it lower or higher, the player would need to adjust to it first, break it, and then flick back to fight you when you could have very well been running out already. If you throw it in front of you, they might spam it and hit you in the process. Or they might be able to control their recoil much more easily and end up taking you down. Speaking of flashes, Breach has some of the best and most annoying flashes, if you use them for your teammates. Breach players are annoying and they know that. After all, it's their job to stun, flash, and knock up all their opponents so that their teammates can entry sight. But something that happens when a Breach gets too comfy with his strong utility is he gets the idea that he can use them for himself, and that's when disaster strikes. Breach is mostly a support agent, and although he can do quite a bit on his own, it's not where he does his best work. Due to the recovery timings of his flashes, it's very hard to use his flash and peek with it comfortably. In the time you spent pulling out your gun, the enemy can escape, or if they dodge the flash, kill you while you're still switching your weapons. Your goal as Breach is first and foremost to support your teammates to frag. Only if all else fails you can pretend you're a duelist. And if you're trying to play like a duelist, then you probably should have picked SKYE or KO instead. Speaking of KO, his flashes are great for playing aggressively and popping around corners. As such, a lot of people like to flex duelists with this initiator, which leads to a lot of aggressive KO players. But in the process of being capable of aggressive playmaking, some KO players begin to think they're Phoenix or something, and that's where things go wrong. When KO first came out, people thought that his ultimate would simply be a better Phoenix ultimate, but people quickly learned that it wasn't nearly as safe. When Phoenix ults, he wants to push and create as much space as possible. In a sense, Phoenix wants to die because he'll simply teleport back to his original location. KO's ultimate isn't like that. Dying doesn't necessarily take you out of the round, but just because you can be resurrected doesn't mean you can just go in. The KOs in my rank games usually seem to think that as long as they press X and sprint in with zero regards, all will work out. But then they usually just die, and then either the rest of the team dies trying to res him, or the round is won and resurrecting him is basically no purpose anyways. So yeah, don't be that guy. What you should do instead is pretty simple. Try to make sure that your team knows what the plan is first. KO's ultimate is a good engage tool, but it's not something to blindly entry with. During the ultimate, make sure you scale up together with your duelist, but play with the mindset that if you die, you need to die in a middle position rather than in the front. The skill in KO's ultimate really comes from finding the balance of using the suppressing effect KO's ultimate offers, but not overextending and turning into a spike to defuse, because that's basically what resurrecting a KO feels like. Diffusing a spike. KO's ultimate is a great tool, but don't think for 1 second you can play it like you're a Phoenix running it down. If you thought that Omen was out of the meta, you wouldn't be wrong, but that doesn't mean Omen is just a strictly worse version of Astra. If anything, Omen has a lot more outplay tools in his kit and a lot more freedom with how he throws his smokes. He isn't nearly as team dependent as Astra, and not as boring as Brimstone, making him a popular smoker in ranked. So if you're forced onto smokes, he's probably your go-to pick. But if you really want to get the most out of Omen, you have to abuse his unique ability to create one-ways almost everywhere. I'm sure you've seen pros use all kinds of funky one-ways on Omen and get some cheap kills. Omen one-ways are super easy, and all they require is some creative thinking and smart placement. By doing this, you'll quickly see how easy it is to really find one-ways everywhere, especially on maps like Ascent. Simply look at the small arrow indicator on where your smoke will land, and you can get an idea on whether your smoke will be a one-way or not. I suggest you play around for like 5 minutes in a custom, and then abuse it in your next rank games until the enemy tilts or calls you cringe. It's super worth it though, and your enemies will learn to respect your smokes. Now that we're talking about smokes, one of the most versatile smokes you can use is JETT CLOUDBURST. Perhaps they don't last as long as the other smokes, but they're quicker to deploy and they can be controlled pretty easily. But one thing that separates JETT players from great JETT players is how they can use them to create space. JETT smokes are very similar to Omens in the sense that you can make great one-ways with them. So whenever you're trying to smoke anything, keep in mind that you could easily create a one-way if you're proficient with it. Apart from smoke dashing onto sites, another thing that people forget is that JETT smokes block Sova dart pings even after the ping comes out. As long as you smoke off the dart before the ping reaches you, or you can smoke off killjoy turrets, alarm bots, or even chamber trips to circumvent their activation. JETT smokes are extremely useful and high impact, so if you can be crafty with their uses, you can outplay your enemies without them even knowing how. This next ability isn't limited to just itself, but applies to all Sentinel abilities as a whole, and that's predictability with CYPHER trips. Too often, I see Cyphers place their exact same favorite setup 12 times in a row, and then wonder why the enemy team keeps shooting them out or avoiding it. CYPHER and other Sentinels work because they surprise people, and the only way you can achieve that is by changing up your setup regularly. As a Sentinel main, you need to be switching up your setup constantly to keep your enemy on their toes and to buy yourself precious time when they hit your sights. Change up their placement, switch up your sights, randomly play retake some rounds. Switch it up. That's the most important tip for you Sentinel players if you want to be high impact. Of course, since we're talking about Sentinels, we also can't forget about our Sentinel Smoker hybrid, ASTRA. ASTRA, like the Sentinels, has a lot of defensive utility that she can use to play around and support teammates. But one thing that people almost always use wrong in game is ASTRA's ultimate. ASTRA's wall is super strong when used well, but oftentimes people seem to forget they even have it, or have no idea where to place it. So in order to help you ASTRA players out, here's some general things to keep in mind when thinking about using your wall. First of all, you should use your wall to split up the enemies or block off entrances. Alternatively, you could use your wall to deny information or secure a bomb plant. Have a game plan before putting up your wall, because its uses change depending on the needs. For retakes, you can block off the enemy entrances or secure a safer defuse. For sight holds, you could put a wall in front of a site and force enemies to push in with little to no sound information. Or if you're attacking a site, you can either block off the defender's retake entrances, or maybe even put a wall up in the front of site to secure a quick plant to play post plant. The uses are endless, but when used well, Astra's wall is super high value and can outright win your team rounds. Lastly but not least, we have Skye's flashes. Everyone that plays Skye knows how good her flashes really are, but a lot of them have one crucial mistake in their mindset, and that's always wanting to get a kill with it. Skye's flashes are oftentimes just as useful as flashing nobody as they are as flashing a whole team. Let me explain. In a game like Valorant, information plays a large part in winning a round, and since information is the name of the game, tools that gather information are super important. Since Skye's flashes have informational value, it'll screech or fizzle out depending on the presence of enemies. It can secure you round winning information even if you don't kill anyone with it. On Bind, for example, one of the most useful things you can do with her is flash long B to see if anyone is there. If they are, you just gained information that can give you an idea of the enemy team's plans. If they're not there, then you have information on where they aren't targeting, and that narrows down the possibility of a fast B take. Playing for info on Skye allows you and your team to gain clues about your opponent's plans, and lets you rotate accordingly, which is sometimes even more valuable than a kill. Keep in mind that your flashes recharge too, so you can be very liberal with Skye flashes early round, and still have some in hand when you need one in a pinch mid to late round. And that wraps it up for 10 abilities that everyone uses wrong. If you did enjoy, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to visit ProGuides.com. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and I will see you guys again in the next one.